Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Before we meet today's guest, as always, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Remember, these are companies that I used as an athletic director. I have absolutely no problem recommending them to you. So let's go ahead and listen to those sponsor shout outs. Don't hit that fast forward button. Be here for about 3 minutes. All right, here we go. Stay with us. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more support, more security, more customization. Talk to the Hometown team. They're going to help you make the best solution for online ticketing. That's hometownticketing.com. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to gipper.com. Start creating world-class marketing content for your school's social media channel. They're the official social media graphics solution for us. They're also your one-stop for creating world-class content. Celebrate your athletes and promote your teams. Go to gipper.com to get started. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle. As an athletic director, we were a Huddle school. Go to huddle.com, see all the things that they can do for you and your program. We also want to say thanks to SnapRaise. SnapRaise is hands down the best fundraising, online fundraising platform out there. We used it at our school, tremendous success. It works. Go to snapraise.com. Check out their other great platforms, but if you're looking for a fundraiser, SnapRaise is the way to go. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards, your school's Hall of Fame, or simply showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and talk to their team. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to thank Home Campus. As an athletic director, I used Home Campus every single day, and it's going to be your one stop for schedules, student athlete eligibility and clearance, rosters, digital forms, working with parents, connecting with coaches. It's homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com, schedule a live web demo, see their scoreboards and their score tables in action. Their products not only generate income for your department, they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. That's sidelineinteractive.com. And we want to say thanks to our good friends at Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. You've never used a survey to take the pulse of your players or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey for you and your program and let you take the pulse of your players, your parents, and your student athletes. That's that's athleticsurveys.com. Athleticsurveys.com. Check them out today. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to Texas, one of our favorite states, and we're going to be visiting today with Leslie Slovak. I think I said that right. Leslie is a certified athletic administrator, and she's the director of athletics and activities for the Richardson ISD, that's Independent School District, and that's in the North Dallas area. So, Leslie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you and I connected. We've got some mutual connections, but excited to have you on and share your story. We always start out by letting our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up, maybe take us up through your own college years, and then we'll take a break. But what's the Leslie Slovak origin story?
Well, born in El Dorado, Arkansas, and then we quickly got to Texas and spent most of my younger years in Mount Pleasant, Texas, where it was a great experience growing up in a small town playing all the sports, and just sports just immediately were a huge part of my life. And I knew in eighth grade that I wanted to be a teacher and a coach because coaches just had such an incredible impact on my life. And fortunate enough to play volleyball at the collegiate level at East Texas State University, small school, Division II, that's now A&M Commerce. They changed names and went under the umbrella of the A&M system. But that was an incredible experience, and played there for I was there actually for 5 years, tore my ACL, and I had a red shirt year, and I was able to start working on my master's and met my husband there. He played football and was a grad assistant there. And in fact, he got his doctorate there, and he's still currently a professor at A&M Commerce. So that's a special place for us.
Oh, wow. Well, we've got some commonalities. I've actually been to El Dorado, Arkansas, and tore both my ACLs. But let's talk about your high school experience. Now, I'm a lot older than you, but I'm guessing back when you were in high school, there wasn't as much of a push to be a year-round athlete, and you had a chance to do multiple sports. How was that experience?
That's a great point. Yes, I mean, went from volleyball, to basketball, played tennis. And then at that time, we didn't have softball. Softball was not a UIL sport at that time. So I played softball in the summer. So I really went from one sport to the other. And it was not until my senior year that club volleyball was even something of a reality. And I was asked to play on a club team. It was a very short season, nothing like it is now. But I love the fact that I grew up in a time where I felt like I could play everything, try everything. Also grew up in a time without social media and cell phones and those pressures, and just grew up playing outside, and was definitely a tomboy. Was all-time quarterback in the neighborhood all the time growing up, and I was always helping organize teams, everything that we played. So I was constantly had a ball in my hand of some sort.
Oh, I love it. I'm having flashbacks right now as you talk about that to our neighborhood days. Um, I ask this question frequently. Looking back on your high school days, you're playing different sports, you had different coaches. Um, can you think of a moment, maybe it was practice, maybe it was in a game, that at the time it really didn't stick out. But now looking back as a coach, as an athletic director, you can say, hey, that was a significant moment. Anything like that stick out for you?
It really does. My high school coach, Michelle Schuper, was just a huge influence for me, and she really had this perfect balance, I thought, of pushing you and getting the most out of you, but you knew she cared about you, but she held you accountable. And I think she saw something in me that maybe I didn't see in myself at times. And I worked really hard. I was probably not always the most athletic in the gym, but I always believed I was the hardest worker. That's something I was real proud of. And I remember my senior year, we got beat in the playoffs, and I was devastated. I was in tears. And I'll never forget, she came over to me and she said, "Hey, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's okay." And at the time, I was like, well, what does she mean? Like, this is devastating. This is awful. And I thought to myself, this is what I'm going to remember forever, is losing this game. And years go on, and I reflect back and think she was right. It was not the end of the world. Losing that playoff game's not the hardest thing I've ever been through in my life. And what's really sticks out now is the relationships, the memories, the bus rides, the time with her, that I've been able to just keep this relationship going, that now we're friends. She's still in my life. It's just that really sticks out, that in that moment I'm this 17-year-old kid that I thought it was the end of the world, that we lost a playoff game. And she very quickly just said, no, no, it's not, and it was time to move on to basketball. And I think it was the next day I show up and I'm in the gym for basketball, and didn't have to be. I think they wanted me to take a day or two off, but
Right.
I just couldn't do that. I was ready to go.
Well, that's a great story. That's why we do what we do, to help maybe create moments like that for the next generation. Okay, you're off to college, college athlete. At what point did you think, hey, this is something that, I could do, something that I want to do, maybe not being an AD, but, probably going into teaching and coaching, when was that moment for you?
Well, the moment was definitely in junior high. And I think that that's crazy to think because I talk to kids all the time, including my own daughter, who's still trying to figure out what she wants to do. And that's okay, and I think it's okay not to know in your 20s and sometimes even in your 30s, is this really what I want to do? But the fact that in eighth grade, I knew I wanted to teach and coach. So I was completely committed to that path, that education path in college. And I had an opportunity where I had a tough decision to make. I was ready to go be a grad assistant at University of Texas for their volleyball program. Incredible opportunity. Was going to get my master's there, and I thought I really wanted to go the college route. And I had a professor tell me, "Hey, Leslie, I know you want to go to Texas and go the college route, but there's a job open in Richardson, Texas, at a really good school district, and I think you need to go interview for the head volleyball job." And I'm 22 years old, and I thought he was crazy. He said, "I know you may not get it. I know you may not want it, but you need to go interview. There's going to be a committee. And there's no better practice than going in and having to first time get in front of a committee and they're firing questions at you, and it'll be a great growth opportunity." So I trusted him. Dr. Morgan, who always gave me great advice, I said, "You know what? I'm going to do it." And then I thought it was crazy. I thought I had a decent interview. I didn't have anything to compare it to. I was nervous. Couldn't believe get a call the next day, and they've offered me the job. And I took the job, and it was probably the best decision I've ever made. And at that time, had no idea that I would ever get into administration. But spent 6 years at Berkner High School as a head volleyball coach before getting into administration, and it was a great opportunity. I was in the right place at the right time.
And again, that's just another example of, leadership and mentorship and helping create that next generation of coaches and ADs. Very cool stuff. I think I may have to steal that sound snippet for one of our promotional things. For our listeners, our guest today is Leslie Slovak. She is a certified athletic administrator, and she's the director of athletics for the Richardson Independent School District in Dallas. We're going to take our first break, but we're coming back with more. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. Their team is going to show you how to set up and sell your tickets online, not just for your athletic events, but things like school plays, concerts, school dances, even graduation. And here's the best part. Every account gets assigned a dedicated client success manager that's going to provide you hands-on support every step of the way. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at Gipper. Go to Gipper.com. It's the official social media graphics solution for the podcast. Their team is going to show you how to create world-class marketing content that'll help you promote your teams and celebrate your athletes. Gipper's used and trusted by over 3,000 high school and college programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made simple. How simple? Even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com. Mention the podcast. They'll give you a nice discount. That's Gipper.com.
Jake, I'd love to give a shout out to Gipper. We have a couple of schools using them right now, and the graphic content and just the look of everything they do is really amazing. Very impressed with them.
Oh, well, gosh, thanks for saying that. And again, I didn't get a chance to use Gipper. It was just kind of coming out as I retired a few years ago. But you're absolutely right. As somebody who is not a tech person, it is so easy to use. And it's just so cool. You know this. The kids are on social media. A lot of the parents are. And putting those graphics out really helps promote your program. Thanks for sharing that.
You
Uh,
bet.
for our listeners, once again, our guest today is Leslie Slovak. She is the director of athletics for the Richardson Independent School District in Dallas. Leslie, you kind of took us up through your college days and that first interview. Talk a little bit about those early years as a teacher and a coach. What was that like? And then kind of take us on your journey to becoming an athletic director.
Well, I just remember I'm 22 years old and I'm teaching and coaching for the first time. And I remember being nervous and thinking, I'm not that much older than the kids. And I remember trying to find that balance between making sure they knew that I'm their coach. I'm not their friend. I love them, but I'm their coach and just not their friend. And so I think finding that balance is something that I think that I did pretty well, but you don't know what you don't know. And I look back now and think there were things I probably should have done different or could have done different, but I loved my kids. And that's one thing that I loved going to work every day. It was a get to job. I get to do this. I get to be around kids and I loved it. We did well. We had some success, but I define success by the experiences the kids have, and it wasn't just about winning at all costs or wins and losses. I still keep in touch with several players to this day, and for the most part, I think most of them had a really good experience, and they should. You're in high school one time, and so I look back on those years and just very fondly.
You know, that journey from coach, because some people, coach for 30 or 40 years, but that journey from to the other side of the desk, as I like to say as an AD, was that something that came up gradually? Did it come up suddenly? I remember for me, our principal came out to football practice and said, Jake, you're the AD, Billy quit. How was it for you? How did you become an AD?
Well, 6 years at Berkner, like I said, as the head volleyball coach, and then the person that hired me is one of my just incredible mentors, one of the best leaders I've ever been around in Bob Doobie. And so he hired me. He was the head football coach and athletic coordinator at Berkner High School. And then he was named the AD in Richardson, and the assistant AD retired. And so now all of a sudden, I've only been coaching for 6 years, and there's this position open that after about my third or fourth year, I started thinking someday I think maybe I would want to go into athletic administration. But in my mind, someday meant after coaching 10 or 12, 15 years, not six. But, Coach Doobie did ask me if I would be interested. And I said, you know what? I haven't really given it a lot of thought. And he said, well, I think you should consider it. So once again, I went into that interview not being the most experienced coach, but I was offered the position and I was in a win-win situation because if I didn't get the job, I loved my kids and I loved teaching and coaching at Berkner High School, and I was willing to be there for as long as I needed to be and take that leap maybe another time. And they offered me the position and I was nervous and excited. And the hardest part was telling my kids. That was the hardest part, is telling my kids that I'm not going to be coaching anymore. I'm going to be coaching coaches instead of coaching kids. And I would still be at their games and watching and supporting. But, great opportunity. Once again, I felt like I was at the right place at the right time. These jobs don't come open very often. And then I spent 15 years as the assistant AD.
You were there as you were there in the district, so you're somewhat of a known quantity. And I'm guessing there might have been one or other two candidates, but
Yeah.
looking back, what do you think sold the committee on you? Why was Leslie the person that we want to have as our AD?
I think it comes down to relationships that I've always been very intentional about building relationships. And that's with my assistant coaches, kids, the principal, the assistant principal, the custodian, getting to know people. I think it really paid off that when I was asked to serve on committees or when someone all of a sudden is sick and they can't work a track meet, I was one of the first ones to raise my hand and volunteer. And I had no idea at that time that made such an impact. But that's the feedback I got later, that I try to pass on to our young coaches who want to do what I do, eventually want to sit in this seat or be an assistant AD. You're being interviewed every single day. So you need to make sure that you're all in and you're doing a great job wherever you are, as opposed to coasting where you are and looking for the next best thing. And I've always said you need to chase opportunities to serve. Don't chase the title and the money.
Well, it's a good call on the money because very few of us are making that big 6 or 7 figure salary. Like some of those Texas football coaches are. Um, Question, and I think I already know the answer. You mentioned, you know, becoming an AD meant you were leaving your kids, the kids that you were coaching. And I think that's something that a lot of ADs, struggle with, internally. maintaining those relationships that you had as a coach because it is different as an AD. What were some things that you did? You already shared that you're intentional. What were some things that you did to try and maintain and build new relationships with kids sitting on the other side of the desk as an AD?
Well, one of the first things that I did when I transitioned into that assistant AD role, going to as many games as possible and getting to know getting to know the coaches, and then have conversations with them about certain kids. And it was being intentional about asking them more about, what's going on in your personal life, getting to know the coaches and then being intentional about getting to know them, but also asking them about their players. And then when I was fortunate enough to interview for the AD position, something that I said in my interview that I wanted to do is I wanted to create a student athlete leadership team because we didn't have that at the time. And I thought it was very important to really give our kids a platform to learn more about Central Athletics, and for my assistant and I to learn from them and get feedback from them. What's working, what's not working, what are your challenges? How can we help them be better leaders, take things back to their campus? So we created SALT, our student athlete leadership team, and that's 4 kids from each high school that meet with us once a month. And that's been a way for me to really be intentional and get to know individual athletes. So I've really enjoyed that.
I know we talked about this before we recorded, but as we mentioned, you are a CAA. The process of forming that student athlete leadership team, that's a great CMAA project. So if you're thinking about that, or listeners, if you're thinking about doing a project, the best projects are things that you are already doing. You don't have to come up with some sort of magical thing. It's the stuff that you're doing right now at your school with your students, your coaches, your parents, your facilities. That would make a great CMA project. So, Leslie and listeners, if you have any questions, I was on certification for a number of years. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Okay. Now, Leslie, anything I said, nudge you into starting that CMAA? I know you got a lot of things on your plate right now.
Maybe I'll be honest. I do feel like my plate is full. I've kind of wear different hats with our ADs Association and things like that. But I do think it's important. I think that the NIAAA does a great job, preparing ADs with the certifications. So it's definitely something that I can look into.
All right, I'll take that as a win-win right now.
Okay.
For our listeners, one more time, our guest is Leslie Slovak. She is a certified athletic administrator. She's the director of athletics for the Richardson ISD, and that's in the North Dallas, Texas area. Let's take another quick break, but we are going to come back for more, so stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Huddle for their support of the podcast. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, all of our coaches, just loved the tools that Huddle provided that let them coach our kids up to the highest levels. Go to huddle.com. Okay, you're going to see why we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. You can also join the 8 million users and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to thank our good friends at Snap. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks on a fundraiser and then ended up with little, if any, return? Stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraising platform out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. Our CFO loved it. And you're going to love it too. Go to SnapRaise and also check out their other platforms like Snap Manage, Snap Store, a really cool one called FanX. It's all there at snapraise.com. Check them out today. And we want to say thank you to our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Are you looking for a really cool way to show off your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or maybe even your school's Hall of Fame? Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to showcase your best students and your diverse history. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. mention the podcast, you'll get a nice discount. VitalSignsWallOfFame.com.
Jake, I'd love to give a shout out to Huddle. We use that district wide, have used it for years. I really feel like we were probably one of their first customers, but what an incredible product they have and just great for kids and coaches. And then we have several schools that use SnapRaise and they use it year after year and they're very happy with it. Fundraising is something that is a campus level decision. So it's not district wide, but we have several schools that have been very happy with them. So appreciate all that they do to help us raise additional funds for some of the wants that we can't always provide from the district level.
Oh no, absolutely. And again, as an people that listen to the podcast know, we only have sponsors that I used as an athletic director. And you mentioned Huddle. I think everybody knew it was a football platform. I was concerned as an AD if the other coaches would like it. And our volleyball coach just loved it, and the basketball coaches and the soccer coaches, they all just loved how easy it was for them to, program their cameras and get their practices and their games scheduled. And then Snap, there's a lot of platforms out there. I'm sure they're all lovely, but I can tell you, SnapRaise, it works and just very easy to use. Thank you for those shout outs. We're gonna have to get you on here
Yeah.
more often. Okay. We talked a little bit about certification in that last segment, but for this one, um, we get a lot of younger ADs that listen to the podcast and some older ones like me too. And I think it's important for them to hear about the journey that we all take with our state association as well as with the national organization. So share a little bit, how'd you get involved, with the Texas associations, and then how'd you hear about and get involved with the LTI program for NIAAA?
Great question. My involvement started when I was an assistant athletic director. I immediately joined our state association and I joined the national association and even helped host when we hosted in Grapevine. And that was quite an experience. And it was my first one at a national conference to get to talk to ADs from all over the country. And what I walked away from realizing is we are very blessed in Texas. Our coaches are full-time employees. I have a operating budget. I don't have to go out and fundraise for, some of the basic needs. We pass bonds quite often. I'm gonna knock on wood in Richardson because our community supports athletics so much. So our facilities are unbelievable. We have uniform cycles that are even embedded in bond. So when I started meeting these different ADs, it was great for me to realize that we are really blessed. And then my involvement with the state association, I volunteered to be on the publications committee. And then I was fortunate enough to be elected Region 3 director, served in that role for the last 3 years, and then recently was voted as our president-elect. So I'll serve as president of our association next year. And I serve along with just an incredible board. We have an executive director in Rusty Dowling, an assistant director in Bob DeYoung, and a staff that does a phenomenal job. We have great relationships with the UIL, our governing body, and then the different coaches associations. So, my advice is get involved, volunteer, and then when, just try to be a part of the process, learn how the association works. And one of the best way to do that is to volunteer so that you can see behind the scenes.
That's so important. And every association, whether it's state coaches, state ADs, or even the national organization, they need volunteers for the conferences. They need them for, all the programs that they offer. And it's a great way to get on that leadership track to, maybe serve as a secretary, treasurer, a vice president, who knows, maybe even president of your association. Um, Talk a little bit about your journey with NIAAA. You're a certified athletic administrator. That doesn't happen by accident. So, how did that all fall into place?
I think it was really listening to some ADs that I became friends with that had been in this business longer than me, and I knew as an assistant AD, I was thought, what can I do to become a better leader? I love learning. I love being around other ADs, and many of my colleagues recommended getting your CAA, including my mentor Bob Doobie, who got his at the same time. So I was an assistant AD when I got my CAA. And I just think that was something that it's just one more thing that I can do to try to be better at my job. And I feel like every conference you go to, every LTI class you go to, you can take something from that. And then 2 years ago, it was nice. Lisa Langston, who's very involved with the NIAAA and a good friend of mine, she asked if I would speak and be a presenter. And so I was able to present in Nashville on our SALT program. And because of that, I've given my contact information out and I've met other ADs, and now I get to pick their brain because I don't have all the answers. I'm never the smartest one in the room, but I'm going to reach out and I'm going to always try to find out, how do you do this? Or what kind of programs do you have for kids? How can we get better? And we're definitely better together. So networking is a huge benefit, in my opinion, of joining NIAAA.
We're going to do this at the end of the podcast, but if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and find out more about your SALT program or some of the other things you do at your district with your schools, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Well, definitely, I think email is the best way, and it's just Leslie.Slovak, LESLIE.SLOVAK at RISD.org, and I will share any information that I have. I'm happy to share. I think that's something that we need to do. It's important to have a circle of colleagues and that are in the AD world that you can share with. You don't have to figure it out or recreate the wheel by yourself.
Oh, no, absolutely. And that's what I share when I talk with young ADs is, the number one thing that's going to help you not just advance your career, but help you at your school right now is build that network. Call up
Right.
that AD in the next district or across the county and introduce yourself, connect with them. Good stuff. And listeners, I think you got a great networking opportunity right here. Let's go and take another quick break, but we are coming back with some best practices from our guest, Leslie Slovak from the Richardson Independent School District in North Dallas. So stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Home Campus for their support. Home Campus is the exclusive high school and state association management platform for us. It's also your one stop for things like scheduling, student athlete eligibility and clearance, digital forms and signatures, rosters, working with parents, working with coaches, you name it, Home Campus does it. In fact, as an athletic director, I used Home Campus every single day, and it was just great. And the Home Campus team is great too. To get started, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. We also want to thank our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo. See their scoreboards and their score tables in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an AD was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Of course, we use it for home games, but we also used it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and their customer service team is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com, schedule that live web demo, check out their great products. Sidelineinteractive.com. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Leslie, one of the things we try to do with the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What are some things that you do with your schools there at Richardson, or maybe at other schools you've been at, that you would consider a best practice that you can share with our listeners?
One thing that we do that we started, I guess we're in year two maybe of doing this, and I wish we had done it sooner. We recognize a coach of the month, and that's so simple. You get nominations from our girls coordinator and our area coordinator, and we rotate it around different learning communities. And when we choose our coach of the month, it can be for different reasons. Sure, they may be district coach of the year or they just won a state championship, but also it may be that assistant coach that the head coach is like, this guy's just working really hard. This lady is just all in for kids. The way her work ethic, there's just all different kinds of reasons why you may be nominated for coach of the month. But it is so fun. It's one of my favorite days of the month. My assistant and I, we set it up ahead of time. We get the principal there, the coordinators are there, and we surprise the coach at a practice. So we go into their practice or their athletic period. We have our print shop make a coach of the month sign. We have a box of really neat, cookies that we give them. We take pictures, we put it all over social media. And it's so simple, but the feedback we receive, it just means a lot to the coaches. So many times we're having to put a lot of effort into that 1%, the coaches or the kids that are maybe not making the best choices, and you're having to redirect and have some hard conversations. This is a way to really focus on the positive because there's so many coaches doing so many great things. So that's one thing we do. The other thing that we do is an aspiring leadership academy. That's fairly new. And what we're trying to do there, and we've had several sessions already this year, and we have one coming up in February. And we've reached out and we've given an opportunity to any of our coaches that aspire to be in a different leadership role. So it may be your junior high coach who wants to be a junior high coordinator. Maybe it's the junior high coordinator who aspires to be a high school head coach or an area coordinator or an athletic director. It may be someone who says, I want to do what you do someday. And that's why we call it Aspiring Leadership Academy. It's not just an AD academy or a head coach academy. We're trying to capture everyone who is aspiring to be in some different type of leadership role. We meet once a month. Our superintendent was our last guest speaker. I'm excited, we're having our mayor come in, and I'm trying to get him on our schedule because he is our retired AD. He's who I took his place, and he's one of the best leaders I've ever been around. Now he's leading a city. So we've also got our president of our association, Philip O'Neill, is going to be a guest speaker. So we bring in guest speakers. I have led some of the sessions, but they need to hear a different voice than mine. So I just try to help them whether it's with interview skills, building their resume, networking. We get down to the real nuts and bolts of what it means to lead. So those are two examples of things that we've done in Richardson.
Looking at the coach of the month, again, you're absolutely right. It's such an easy thing to do. Have you seen that small effort be a springboard to coaches signing up for your leadership academy?
I think so. I think there's definitely a correlation with the coaches who are all in for kids and they're doing a great job, but they aspire for something more. I definitely think that those can, those relate for sure. I'm just really proud. We've got over 200 coaches, and I think we have close to 50 coaches signed up for the Aspiring Leadership Academy because it's in the evenings. So for someone to go through this program, they're giving up another night away from their family. It's a sacrifice. But I also think that if you want to be a leader and you want to lead adults, then it's on me as a leader to make sure that I'm doing everything possible to get them ready. And I know that I would have loved to have been a part of this. I had great mentors and I had great people around me that saw something in me, but I would have been the first one to sign up for something like this. So I feel like it's a way to give back.
Oh, no, absolutely. And speaking of giving back, we can do this after the show, but if you would like, I'd love to donate, a set of some of our AD Toolbox books for your next leadership program. Maybe we can help develop that next athletic director or that next head coach. Okay.
Thank you.
This has been really cool. I'm so glad that we were able to connect, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you certainly know your way around the world of athletics, but we're going to take our final break. When we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 items in their toolbox. So let's hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this segment. When we come back, we're going to find out what Leslie Slovak is going to put into her new athletic director toolbox. Please stay with us. We want to thank Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment of the podcast. At my school, we use surveys for just about everything, for kids, for coaches, for parents, and the information that came back was almost 98% over the top positive. But we would also hear from those squeaky wheel parents that we were already hearing from anyway. And a lot of times they're just venting, but the surveys gave them a chance to point out usually some small things that we could address and keep them from turning into big things that we didn't know about because we hadn't done a survey. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey for your school that lets you take the pulse of your players, your coaches, and your parents. Okay, that's athleticsurveys.com. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Leslie Slovak. She is a certified athletic administrator. She's the director of athletics for the Richardson ISD in North Dallas, Texas. Has a tremendous athletic background, but right now I'm going to challenge her to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let her put 3 items in the toolbox. So, Leslie, what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
Well, the first one, I would tell a brand new AD to take a look at who is in your inner circle. And if you're brand new, you may be looking around and going, I don't really have a circle. You have to have a circle. So I'm going to challenge you to reach out to at least 2 different veteran ADs at least twice a month. And not just one, because you need to have a different perspective, but you need to reach out and you'd be amazed how many people want to help you. So start creating your circle. And I think that's really, really important. And that can be a text, it can be an email, it could be an in person meeting, a phone call, but you'd be amazed how many people want to help you. So create that circle and create that network and don't feel like you're on an island by yourself. The second one, and I did this and I wish I could do it more often with over 200 coaches. It's really, really hard. So it depends on the size of your school or your school district. But at a minimum, set up one on one meetings very quickly after you get the AD job with your coordinators. So if you have a junior high coordinator, if you have girls coordinators, area coordinators, set up one-on-one face-to-face meetings and get to know them personally first. Spend the first 10 minutes or so, let them know you and your background, but also ask them about their family and just create that space where they feel comfortable talking to you. Because once you jump from to AD, they may feel like, I don't know that I can come talk to you, or they feel like there's a little bit of distance there. And I think you need to be intentional, with building that relationship and you need to give them time. Uh, in my opinion, nothing says that you're important more than scheduling a face-to-face meeting. And I think we do a lot by email, a lot by text, probably too much. And I think we need to give people face-to-face time, and that's something I try to practice. And I challenge myself. I need to be better at it as well. And it can be challenging. The day can get away from you, but if you're a new AD or a veteran AD, you got to take time for your people. I think that's so important. And then the third one, and this sounds really simple, but I think it's harder than people realize. When you're brand new, don't assume people know what your expectations are. Be clear about expectations. And do you have a coach's handbook? Do you have a preseason meeting? That's where you go over these expectations. Don't just assume that your coaches know what you expect from them. And when coaches are not meeting the expectation, you have to have the hard conversations and you're in leadership. So if you're not uncomfortable within the first couple of weeks of being an AD, you're probably not leading. It's going to be uncomfortable. And you have to remind yourself it's about the kids. And if there's a program that's struggling or you have a coach that's struggling, it's just like when a kid struggles. Pull that coach in and find out, is there something going on in their personal life? Maybe there's something going on outside of athletics and maybe this coach really needs help. But have the hard conversations. Don't shy away from them, and you'll be better off. Because in the end, it's what's best for kids in that program. That has to be bigger and better, and the most important thing over what's best for an individual adult.
Well, I love them all, and I love how they all connect back to some of the themes that you shared during your interview. Particularly, building relationships. Relationships with coaches, relationships with kids. Obviously, that communication. Both vertical and horizontal. Great, great stuff. Leslie, thanks so much for spending time with us today. I know you're incredibly busy. Once more, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and add you to their connections, their network, what's the best way they can get hold of you?
Please do. I'm happy to help. It's Leslie, Leslie .Slovak at RISD.org. Send me an email. I'm happy to help. Like I said, we're better together. And Jake, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh no, that right back at you. Thanks for sharing. You were great. Got to get down to Texas. Maybe I can be a presenter for one of your workshops. For our listeners, our guest again was Leslie Slovak. She's the director of athletics for the Richardson ISD. We do this just about every day, and we also upload the Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. Of course, we appreciate your listening and your support. Come back next time for another great interview, and just about every day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.